Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the FRC Historian. One of my favorite things to do after the championship is to look back at those alliances who didn't quite make it to Einstein. As we all know, there are hundreds of teams that go to each World Championship. However, only 24 teams can make it to Einstein, and of those teams, only 8 make it to the Einstein Finals. So how did those other teams go out of the hundreds? How did that one team I played with a few years ago? How did my friends' teams do? And all of those fun questions to see. And of course, the other question being, what if the finalist alliance had won? How would that change up Einstein? It's one of those amazing thought experiments that I always run through my head at the end of every FRC season. However, one other thing I like to look for is historically significant alliances. How is that one team who did a few years ago, or many years ago, how are they doing today? Did they make the playoffs? Did they win any playoff matches? Those are the things that I like seeing every year. And now that's one of the things we're going to be looking at. One year that was good for historically significant alliances was 2018, with two big ones taking place in the Detroit Championship, one being the alliance of the 1999 World Champion Aces High, as well as the winner or the holder of the record for the most consecutive Einstein appearances, that being 6 by Bobcat Robotics 177, that worked for both of them having teamed up multiple times since, and also with them teaming up at the district championship, becoming a finalist. They became one of the district championship alliances who teamed up yet again at the world championship. However, they'd be taken out in the semifinals, of course, by that number one alliance, who would go on to lose to an alliance of 4917 and the Martians, of course. So now, as we look at, we're going to look at another one of those alliances. That one being headed up by, you guessed it, Hammond. Team 71, the four-time world champion, tire of that record, winning in 97, 2001, 2002, and 2004. So how did they do in 2018? Better than you might think. And that is why I'm affectionately naming this alliance that they captained the Einstein Alliance that could have been, mainly due to the teams on here, how they've been in the history of FRC, how they've done this year, and of course, how close they got to making it to Einstein. They were in the alliance, in the division that would end up producing the Einstein Finalist Alliance, that being headed up by the Thunder Chickens, so it's always fun to look at this one. One of the things I first thought of when I saw this alliance and who they were going up against, well, they're going up against Talon Robotics and Raid Zero, that one team who did really well at the regional level in the early weeks of the year. So I didn't know how they'd do. However, they would win 2 of 3 and make it onto the semifinals. But before we go on to that, eventually our moment in history, we must first look at all 4 of these teams and how they've done throughout this competition season. When we look at Hammond, we can't just look at them as their 2018 robot. When it comes to them, they have an outstanding history. And the thing to remember about Hammond and, of course, the Robot the Beast is that they did amazing for several years. And with the advent of the 3-member alliance, they even made Einstein Finals yet again in 2007, winning multiple regionals along the way. However, with 2013 being the last year that they were able to win a competition and get a winner's banner, it's incredibly, they haven't been able to do as well since. It is important to remember that in 2016, had their alliance not had a red card against them in one of the districts, they would have won. And with several finalist alliance attempts, including 2015 and several other years along the way, it's important to remember that although they have not won a competition, they have come pretty close in some of the years since. So if we look at their 2018 season, it started off at the St. Joseph event being once again the district finalist. Surprisingly, or not surprisingly if you want to see it, against an alliance headed up by the Comets, who were yet again in this division in the second alliance. Comets would come in from Michigan, and they would go in and win, becoming district champions, leaving Hammond to become a district finalist. They wouldn't do as well as Tippecanoe, becoming quarterfinalists, and then becoming semifinalists, losing to an alliance with 1741 and 1747. Onto the Indiana State Championship, they do just as well as at the last district, going out in the semifinals, teaming up with 1024 and 5484, getting out in the semifinals against 1741, 1720, and 5188. With this, they would go on to the Carson Division, ranking 6th after all matches were said and done, and then they would eventually captain the number 5 alliance, with one in picking before, where they would of course pick the number 1 pick, Sabotage. The thing about Team 1640 is I've always seen them as almost like a wild card team. They aren't always rank 1, and they might not always be in the number 1 alliance, but they're not one to rest on. They're an amazing team with great driver skill and strategy who will be able to upset at a moment's notice. This year was no exception in some cases. They start out at their district system in Mar at the West Town, where they get out in the semifinals, teaming up with Miss Daisy in 43-73, making it to the semifinals of that competition, losing against the Miracle Workers 17-12 and 49-54. They go on to the Seneca event, ranking 10th, being picked up by the number 3 alliances, 834, and alongside 2600, would win a district, going for a best of 3 in the semifinals and winning against 1391, 2180, and 2495. Their next event, they become a Chairman's Awardee and finalist, getting out against 25, 2590, and 6226. Why do I mention these? Well, 25 is also in this district. They would team up with 25 would team up with 1640, with them being picked up by 25 and 1089 at the Mid-Atlantic District Championship, where they would make it to the finals, being taken out by another friend at 225. Whereas 2590 would team up with 25 and take out 1640. At this competition, 2590 would team up with 225 and take out 25 and 1640. Onto the Carson division, they would rank 11th and be picked up by their friends Hammond. And now on to the second pick, with Team Hype. The thing about Hype from New York is that they're one of those great teams who've yet to win a competition. They've made it to the finals several times. They've won an off-season out of 2018. However, due to both a mix of them being great at upsetting their way to the finals and barely losing in the finals, they're one of those teams who's yet to win one, but it's one you don't want to be up against as they're very good at what they do. They'd be picked up next. They were, of course, a finalist at the Central New York Regional, it taking both Shaker and Greater Rochester Robotics, 50-30 the second mouse and 70-81 to take them out. At the Finger Lakes Regional, they'd be yet again a regional finalist, teaming up 1559 and 578 to go up against 340 again, 1507 and 3550 at the finals of Finger Lakes. And then finally, they'd rank 45th and be picked up as the second pick of this alliance. Not a bad second pick at all, especially being one that did very well at both of their regionals. Becoming a 2-time regional finalist is not easy. Ask many teams in the regional system, and they would be on this alliance yet again. And their final pick, the Mech Dragons, would have a very good robot performance this year. One of their best, actually. For a team that had been around all the way since 2002, this would be their first win in years. I believe over 15 years would be the first time they win a competition. Them going to, of course, from the CHS district, they go to the Northern Virginia, where they team up with Wobot in 3274, going on to win as part of the number 7 alliance. They'd go on to the Hampton event, where they'd get out in the semifinals. And they go on to the district championship, where they team up with 384 Sparky in 1885 in a number 8 alliance that one day I might cover, where they're, as the number 8 alliance, were able to win a district championship, to the surprise of many and to the joy of many others like myself. Now on to the Carson division, they would become that backup bot, and they would see play in 3 matches. One of the things about now we're going to go on to what I would call the moment, when they were able to do what they did. When they were going into the quarterfinals, they'd be up against the aforementioned 2502 Talon Robotics, 4253, the Taipei team, the one who won 2 regionals, 3990 and 1736. They would go on to win their first match, lose the second, and win the third by 2 points with that third match, becoming, of course, one of the first semifinalists. Going on to the semifinals, they would, of course, go up against the number 1 alliance. Now, if you remember their first pick, 1640, the second robot of this alliance, had lost against both 25 and 225 in the season. However, they wouldn't let this get them down. With this, 225, 225, 3015, and Team 88 TJ Squared would go up against our alliance number 5 here. For many of us, like myself, I wasn't sure and I wasn't certain, and I wouldn't have betted on Hammond's alliance winning this matchup, as I expected 1 and 2 to duke it out in the finals, with the best one going on to Einstein. However, we would see in the first match that, of course, the number 1 alliance would win by a sizable 211 point gain. On to the second match, number 1 alliance would score quite a few points. However, they would commit a red card. nullifying all their points, and against a score of 2-9 from the Blue Alliance and a broken Hammond, the Blue Alliance would go into the next match. Now, this is where it gets surprising for me, of course. Hammond had broke. They were not going into that third match, so they had to bring out 422. That little robot that could, the robot who won a district championship as the number 8 Alliance alongside Sparky. They would win this match in a very close matchup. Not as close as the last one, but they'd win by a score of 264 to 247, them just being able to outdo that Alliance just enough to make it to the finals. This is the first time that Hammond would make division finals in quite a while. However, unfortunately for them, and unfortunately for all those watching, hoping for Hammond to make it back again, they would not play the next two matches, where sadly for this Alliance, they would lose 308 to 414 and 291 to 469. Of course, Las Guerrillas in the finals of this division, with the All Michigan Alliance of 217, 3357, 4967, and 4130 would go on to Einstein to become Einstein finalists. Now, with this, when we look at it, this is an alliance that probably could have made Einstein. Was it possible? Yes. Did I believe it when I first saw the alliance? Of course not. Did I think they could have made the semifinals? Maybe. Did I think they would upset the number one alliance? I did not think so. And this is one where I say the Einstein alliance we could have gotten. This alliance means a lot symbolically. You have, of course, a team who hasn't made Einstein in years. One whose last Einstein appearance ended in an Einstein finalist in 2007. A team who hasn't won a competition since 2013. Then you have 1640. Of course, Sabotage. A robot who did win a competition this year, winning a single district. However, had lost against both 25 and 225, who they were able to upset in the semifinal. You had Hype, a team who had never won a competition. Had they won, this one would have been the first ever competition they'd won. And if you count that offseason, that would only come after this competition. Then, of course, their MechTech Dragons 422, the team who teamed up on one of the most historic district championship alliances of all time, being able to win a competition as the number 8 seed at a district championship. One of the most inspiring things I've ever seen. This was an alliance that could have made Einstein, I believe, if they were in another division. The question if Hammond had been able to repair themselves and played, do I believe they would have beaten the Thunder Chickens alliance? Probably not. They could have brought it to a best of 3, but I do believe that All Michigan alliance would have prevailed in the end. However, this is one of those alliances that, had they made Einstein, it would have been a historic moment. The first time Hammond had won a division in years. The first time that Hype had won a competition. For the Mech Dragons, it would have been a great resurgence, especially since when the first competition in, quite a while, and over a decade. Having them win one here would just solidify their resurgence as an FRC team to win 3 banners that year. And of course, with Sabotage, them making it back to Einstein. With all of these teams, this is one of those what-ifs in FRC that I like to ponder. It's one of those things that I would have liked to have seen what would have happened had they met Einstein. Would they have gotten 5-0 and won the championship? Probably not. Would they have done as well as the Thunder Chickens Alliance? Probably not, but it's one of those things that I like seeing. It's one of those things that you look back at years later and wonder what could have been. The biggest thing here is, look at Hammond. For a team that hasn't won a competition since 2013, they put together a ragtag alliance who upset twice on their way to the finals, where the three teams, the first pick, second pick, and backup, did their best to try and take down the Einstein finalist. I like this alliance. I would have liked to have seen them made Einstein. However, I did like seeing this alliance make it past the quarterfinals, as I did not expect them to in the beginning. And that's one of those things that goes to show you. Make sure that you never underestimate an alliance, as they can do just about anything when it comes down to the World Championship. So thank you for watching today. There are many more alliances like this, and if you have one in mind you'd like me to cover, I'd love to hear that. If not, I might find another one in the future and cover it too. So thank you for watching. This has been the FRC Historian.